So good morning or good afternoon, depending upon where you are. And I'm here with KimBergHansen, who, congratulations, Kim, for being selected as a finalist in the Oracle Database Developer Choice Awards in not only the SQL category, but also the PL SQL category.
Yes, that was amazing, getting two categories.
Well, not too amazing, given how much you guys contribute back to the community. Being selected as a finalist, it's a big deal because, you went through a panel of aces. Not only did you need to be nominated, but then you had to have a bunch of aces and some guys from dev decide, yeah, this guy actually knows what he's talking about and, has good tone in the forums and that. Kim, you obviously great contributor in the community. What if, I'm always interested in terms of how you guys get started. I mean, we know you as KimBergHansen, the SQL PL SQL guy, but how did you get started? How did you get into the technology business?
It actually started with that I found out that I was no good doing electronics.
You wanted to be an electronical engineer?
Well, I kind of fiddled around that as young, and it didn't really work very often. I managed to try to make an intercom. It did not work as an intercom, but it could take Radio Moscow.
Okay.
So then I started working a bit with a Commodore VIC-20. I think it was in the US called VC-20. A very small computer with 4.5 kilobytes of RAM and rudimentary basic language. And I found out that I could do this. It worked. And then I started to figure out, okay, now what could I become there? And tried to find out if I could find some place where ideally people would come to me and say, hey, I want a program that can do this. And then I would design it and program it and deliver it and do everything myself. But when I looked around, it looked like mostly there were two types of jobs. One as a consultant that would do the talking and then design and think, and then somebody else would actually code the thing. And it didn't seem satisfactory, but after some going to university, and I ended up quite by chance at a company that would do consulting on a Danish ERP system that was called Concord XAL.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very much based on what I wanted. We consultants, we would go out to the customer, and this system was based on not being very configurable, but being actually a kind of development platform so that we would customize for the customers by developing.
Okay.
And I did that for 3-4 years, and then I got a permanent position at one of our customers. And this system would be running on top of an Oracle database, but it had its own legacy language.
Okay.
Now, this legacy language was very, very primitive. So if we wanted to get some performing code, then we would have to start doing SQL and PL SQL instead. And that got me started into the Oracle world around 2000, year 2000. And since then, that's been practically all I do.
No, so when you went to university, did you actually study computer science or information systems and that, or was it?
Computer science and mathematics.
And mathematics, okay. A lot of developers love math. Interesting.
Computer science was a lot theory. And just a little bit practice in some languages like Modular 2
mm-hmm.
and C, not C#, just plain old C.
Yeah, the original, the good old days. So
the one where you can really mess up.
Yeah, exactly. Pointers. So Kim, C, different switching gears, different C, 12C, database 12C. Obviously, SQL engine for our flagship engine here. From your perspective as a developer, what are some of your favorite app dev features in the database that have come out in 12c?
Well, one thing I really like, of course, is the match recognize clause, the pattern matching.
And why do you like it? What's the power of it? Explain to the layperson why would you use it, and what's the strength of it?
For me, it's a chance of, we'll call it declarative analytics. It's very much a declarative way of saying, pretty much in plain English, what you want to look for, what patterns of data it should find. And then it just does it. Quite efficient too. And many of the examples of pattern matching in the documentation is based on like finding particular patterns in stock ticker data, for example, or other big data-ish type of problems. And it's like people in stock data, for example, stock tickers would all often look for patterns like when the price would go down, up, it's a W pattern, and they would search for wherever is a W pattern. Or you might search for suspicious fraudulent behavior in a credit card transaction, things like that.
So pattern recognition in that.
Pattern recognition like that in the data, and it's very efficient for that. But besides that, it can also be quite a lot like a Swiss Army knife, like a tool that can be used for quite a lot of different things. More, I would say it can be used for more than what probably the designers of Match Recognize have thought about.
So very flexible then.
Very, very flexible.
So Kim, part of the technology is also about the community. And I was reading your blog, and I noticed that you just got back from the Oracle user group Norway cruise.
Yep.
So, and you had good things to say about that. Give us a brief preview of why somebody would, go on that, and what's it like being on a cruise ship with a bunch of Oracle technologists, and what were some of the more interesting technologies that people were talking about or playing with?
Well, the Oracle User Group Norway cruise, I will start by saying that quite a lot of the user group conferences are amazing places to go. And the Norwegian one is one of the real good ones. They attract quite a lot of very interesting speakers, and there's a nice crowd. There's about 300 people. And we sail off from Oslo a bit before noon. No. And then we use 20 hours to sail down to Germany. And there's a 4-hour stopover and then sail back. So that means that there are 2 full days aboard the ship. And there's a complete conference center on board the ship. And there's like, 102 sessions on 10 different tracks. And there are things about, I went to, Alex Newton had, from Holland, he had sessions on doing some Node.js with Legos and Apex and things like that. I went to Ami Amaharonovich or something like that, who talked about 12c new features. And there are, I think that we were 12 aces or something like that. Quite a lot of international speakers, and a lot of it also in English. Some of the sessions in Norwegian, but quite a lot of it in English. So it's and the idea that we are on this ship all together, that means that, you cannot go somewhere else for the evening.
Yep.
So it means that you're just forced to socialize during
forced fellowship, huh?
Yeah, but really, it does not take much to force us to do that. It's we have a lot of fun too, aboard, and
I think you guys redefined the definition of captive audience.
Quite, yes. Oh, well, unless they want to take a large swim.
Yes. I think that's pretty cold up there in those the fjords. So in your day-to-day work, obviously you make a living out of, working with Oracle and SQL and that. What are some of the tools that you use just to get stuff done?
Well,
or do you do it all in a text editor?
Where I used to work, basically we use Toad.
Uh-huh.
And we use Toad quite a lot. But not, let's say not the really advanced features. Mostly what I did and the others there used the code editor and whatever the code editor can do for us.
Yeah.
And I'm also doing SQL Developer, but pretty much for the same things.
Yeah.
I try for that. I think I like to try out both of them because there's a few things where I feel that one is better than the other, and vice versa.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I must say that, SQL Developer, there's a lot of new stuff happening there. And the way that the SQL Developer team asks for requests for enhancements from the community and actually do most of them.
Have you been up to their SQL Developer Exchange where they
yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. The SQL Developer Exchange and the way that Jeff Smith and whoever else from
Chris Rice and that whole team,
the way that they respond to the community's needs. Now that makes me say that the improvement curve of SQL Developer is a lot steeper.
Oh, okay. So it's
12 years ago,
progressing a lot faster.
Yes. 12 years ago, I would very much have preferred Toad. Now I think it's maybe about even. My personal is probably still Toad, but mostly because what I'm used to.
Ah, I see.
Mostly habits.
Yeah.
If I look at it objectively, I see that, I would call them about equal now. And I would foresee that SQL Developer would improve faster and becoming more and more. Also, particularly because that it gets, it has all the, what's it called? The tight integration with the new features. Like in SQL Developer, it understands about Apex applications.
Yes.
Understands multi-tenancy. It understands the database in the cloud.
The integration with ORDs and stuff like that.
Exactly, stuff like that. And that's where I really think that that's the strong point for SQL Developer, that it's so integrated with all of the with the Oracle stack.
Yeah. Actually, Chris was saying the other day how a lot of the features, and you just pointed it out, is a lot of the features that they've put into SQL Developer has either been driven from stuff that people have asked them through their SQL Developer Exchange, or stuff that they're actually building out so that they can support the database cloud services properly. So, exactly. when you look at it from that perspective, and you have a development team that actually pays attention to their users and is involved in the forums and that, you're probably right about in terms of the curve on the SQL Dev is, over time is definitely going to become the front runner. At least that would be my sense on it in terms of that. If you get the right people, smart developers listening to smart users, usually it's a good thing.
I agree.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I'm always interested in is students, okay? How do we get young developers started, guys just starting out? It's an interesting thing in terms of, what advice would you give to somebody starting out? Just brand new, maybe a developer that has known maybe another language but isn't familiar with SQL, but wants to learn it. What would you say?
Well, I would say don't be afraid of SQL. I would say that it might be tempting to say, I don't really need to know SQL. I can have a framework that just generates what I need. But it will always, with a framework, just be not, well, it would be for 90% of your work okay. But if that's all you can do, then you can only get pretty humdrum jobs, because you can only do the normal average work. If you want to have some exciting jobs, you need to get into those last 10% where the framework cannot help you, where
so
you
the
need
performance areas and stuff like that.
Yeah. And where you also need to know the more specific things that each database vendor and each database version can help you with. It's like, well, a simple thing would be if you would use a framework to make, say, a tree, have a program with some hierarchical data and want to show it as a tree. A framework would often maybe perform something that selects the first level. And then for each of those in the first level, select the children. And for each of the children, select the ones below. Because that would work in any SQL-based database.
Yeah.
So that's the typical framework method. If you know in Oracle, in older versions at least, the connect by syntax, which is proprietary Oracle, only Oracle uses it. But if you know it, then you can make a much more performant application that shows your data hierarchically. It's a small example, but there are many such examples that where if you really know things, you can have much more fun with it, and you can get the exciting tasks because you will become an expert.
Mm-hmm. So under a better understanding of the underlying database design, no matter which database it is, whether it be Oracle, MySQL, Microsoft SQL Server, exactly. Each one of them is slightly different in their implementation of the ANSI SQL standard. So actually understanding what is available underneath the covers in the end gives you a more interesting job, I guess, because you get to actually do that extra bit, that 10% extra or whatever.
And then the second thing would be to see that, well, if you are going to write a good application that is based on data, there are two parts. There's the data-oriented part and the logic part, and then there's the user interface part. And as a new developer, you should think about which of those things are really what I like to do. Do I like to do flashy front web programming, iPhone apps, things like that? Or do I like to make logic, things that can calculate on big data and then just present some result, which some other developer then will make the user interface for? I think that in the future, you cannot really be good at both.
Oh, you think it's two different distinct skill sets then?
Well, your distinct skill sets, yes, in a manner. I think that you should need to know some about both skill sets, but you cannot become expert in both.
Ah, I see. Just because of the sheer volume of the tools and functionality available in either side, or is that?
Partly that, but partly also a matter of figuring out how does your own brain work.
Uh-huh.
If, like me, I'm a mathematic logic thinking mostly.
Uh-huh.
So if I get a task about some sets of data and need to do something with that, I find it natural. If I want to do a user interface, sure, I can do a user interface, but it will be a user interface that I will find natural and which will be okay for if the users of that program are logical, mathematically thinking people.
Okay.
But if it's something that's to be used by John Doe on an iPhone while he's on the tube in London or something like that, something that's to be easy and intuitive, I'm not the right person to make the UI.
Yeah.
That needs a whole different thinking. And
I see, yeah.
Those who can think like that, they are also often not so good at thinking about the mathematics and logics for making the data part of the application perform.
I see. So basically, find out what you're passionate about and play to your strengths, really, is, yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And then go out and tell the companies that need applications made that they need both types of people on the team.
Yeah.
If they only have the data-oriented developers on their teams, they will get high-performant applications, but the users won't use them because their interfaces will be horrible.
Yeah.
If they only have those who know how to make a user experience, then they use probably maybe some frameworks to generate some data layer, and they'll get a nice looking application that users love to use, but it'll be slow.
Yeah.
They really need both.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, Kim, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And congratulations on being selected as a finalist in the Devies. And appreciate your contributions to the community. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.